Hey guys, apologies for the wait. Make sure that you guys vote in the poll. And the poll is, how will Colin Strickland's statement impact the Caitlin Armstrong case? Some of you guys say negatively, 23%, about a quarter of you. 15% say negatively and positively. Some say positively it helped Ali, didn't it? But it's quite an even split. It's around about a quarter all the way. Most of you, though, are saying it's hard to say. I'm inclined to agree with that at this point. There are certain areas where Strickland's statement seems to help Ali, and certain places where it seems to help Caitlin Armstrong. As we're about to see in the transcript. We're going to get to that in a second. Before we do, let's just have a look at who's here. Pauline, SM Kovalinsky, thanks so much for sending this on to me. Renee Mitchell, Sharon, good to see you. Susanna Santos, Helena, and Jennifer Walty. Is there anyone else? Wanzi, good to see you. So this is really cold. I'm not really prepared. I haven't really kind of gone through the transcript. As far as I know, it's sort of exclusive. I haven't seen it anywhere. So we're kind of going to deal with that and just see where it takes us. I don't want to deal with the way Strickland deals with it. So I don't want to deal with his criticism of the statement. Because that's sort of part of the defense case. And at this point, we just want to look at what does he say? What does Colin Strickland say, right? I will obviously come back to the issues COFA has with Colin's statement. So we will definitely come back to that. We are in a very weird place, not only, I think, as the true crime community, but also in the timeline of true crime. We are sort of a year after Brian Laundrie's remains were found, plus minus, and that sort of lawsuit's ongoing. And then out of the middle of nowhere, we got this CCTV footage of Brian and Gabby, almost like bringing them to life again, right? Then right next to that, you've got the Rust shooting, and now the Rust movie is going to be going ahead, even though the investigation hasn't been completed. And the husband of the victim is going to be executive producer. Just feels very strange, doesn't it? It feels odd. So within that framework of oddness, we're going to deal with Colin Strickland. It's also quite strange how he has remained kind of invisible. It's been about Caitlin Armstrong, and she's gone away from the radar. We've found out a little bit about Mo Wilson. Even her family, we haven't really heard from them. But Colin Strickland has, for the most part, remained out of the public eye. Now, I quite like the image behind me because it conflates the idea of someone who's riding in a race with the banting. Often when you do a race in, I don't want to say nature, but basically a mountain bike race, right? You have that banting, which kind of looks like crime scene tape. And I thought that's quite a useful image to address what we're talking about here. Okay, so shall we get started with the transcript? As I say, I'm kind of coming into this cold, and we're kind of going to go through it. So let's bring this up. So there's the transcript. This part here actually deals with a refutation of jealousy that comes from the transcript. where, yeah, Colin Strickland says, I have no evidence of that, and they've added emphasis to that, where he was asked, I thought she was blocked, you know, on your phone. And then he says that she went into your phone and blocked your contacts. And he says, I have no evidence of that. That's one of the things that COFA is using to say there's no evidence that Caitlin was jealous, because Colin Strickland said, I have no evidence of that. And so there are certain other things as well. So there you can see the end of this particular section. Now we're going to deal with the transcript. So it sort of starts off with the detective and Strickland kind of getting, the date is the 17th of May. Can you see it there? 17th of May, 2022. It's Detective Spittler with, I think, attorney Claire Carter. I'm assuming Claire Carter is Colin Strickland's attorney. So I think there were 3 people present. Then it says the audio begins, and then there's a section dealing with sitting down, all right? Someone actually makes a comment. He's down there, he rode his bike, apparently. Someone laughs. I think what that's got to do with is that I think he came to the police station on his bicycle. And then there's sort of people talking and laughing. And then this is where it actually starts. Okay, so that's where we're going to kind of get going. What does Sharon say? Sounds good. Okay, let's get going here. So the question comes up, what makes you most comfortable? Colin Strickland says, how about I'll sit here? Claire Carter says, okay. Strickland, this looks great. Detective Spittler, make sure that's unlocked. In other words, the door, so that he can get out. It's kind of a legal protocol. Then he says something about, looks like I got a broken chair. Yeah, before we start anything, I just want to make sure that you know you're very, very clear. You're free to go at any time. You don't have to stay down here at any point in time. If you'd like, I've had enough. I'm done. I'm ready to go. That's 100% up to you. Colin Strickland says, I wasn't even considering that the last time. I just didn't have like any. Spittler says, oh, you were going through a whirlwind of emotions last time. Strickland says, yeah. Spittler says, so Strickland says, neither here nor there. Spittler, yeah, everything turned upside down, so I get it. So I think what you want to look out for here is, has he been Mirandized? Also, this feels like it's the second time that he's spoken to the detective. He was saying whirlwind of emotions, right? So it feels like this is kind of the second go around. So one does wonder, where is the first transcript? So you kind of get the idea. Right now he's got his attorney with him, and he's had time to sort of think about what's going on, right? So as you know, the date of this interview is the 17th. It was 6 days after the killing of Mariah Wilson. And I think it was 3 days after Caitlin flew to New York. Just want to make sure of that last date. Did Caitlin fly to New York on the 14th? Just a little bit fuzzy. The city of Austin obtained an arrest warrant on May 17th. I'm just trying to see what date she flew. Caitlin Armstrong flew, no, not that. What do you guys say? Not getting any help from you guys. Unfortunately, it's always a little bit behind. Chat's always like about 20 seconds behind, when you sort of get to something. Let's just try and confirm this. Caitlin Armstrong. So the arrest warrant was the 17th. I know that she flew before that. I'm just trying to get confirmation. Was it the 14th? Yeah, there it is, May 14. So let's just put ourselves in. Let's just put ourselves in the timeline here. The killing occurred on the 11th of May, right? Which is a Wednesday, 11th of May. And then I think they spoke to Caitlin and Colin on the 12th, the next morning. Caitlin then flew to New York on the 14th. They got the arrest warrant, the right one, I think, on the 17th. And that's the same day that Colin was speaking to them again, right? Yeah, it almost feels like it was last year. Feels that long ago. Okay, so that's where we are. This is the same day that the arrest warrant came out for Caitlin. One wonders whether it came out after this interview. But at this point, Caitlin had been out of Austin, out of Colin's home, or their home, for 3 days. So that's kind of the situation. It's quite important to place ourselves in that sort of scene, right? Okay. Stephanie says, so did she meet her sister in New York? We know that her sister's passport traveled with her to Costa Rica. So what do you think the answer is to that? Okay, so let's continue. Spittler, all right. I do want to say, so I was able to go back and corroborate a lot of the stuff that you ended up telling me the last time, like where you were and what all mapped and where you had been and stuff. And so I definitely do appreciate how honest you were about all that stuff. So he's saying that I did go back and I corroborated what you said. So again, that's just confirmation that this is the second interview, right? Strickland says, absolutely. Spittler says, he definitely helped out. And like I said, I was able to corroborate every single thing you said. So I know for a fact that you weren't lying about that stuff. So now it kind of begs the question, was he lying about anything? Or if he wasn't lying, was he either being economical or was he minimizing? You've got to bear in mind, they're bringing him in for questioning again. What's that all about? Anyway, so he says, Strickland says, sure, Spittler. So I do appreciate all that stuff. Strickland, seems obvious. Spittler, so that night that you leave the pool burger, so he jumps right in. He's jumping right into the circumstances. Strickland, yes, sir. Spittler, and you go from there and you head back to where Mo was staying. Strickland, yes. Spittler, over at Cash's house, right? Strickland, yes. Spittler, when you pulled up, what was it that was the first thing that, basically, I guess, whenever you pulled up, like, what is it you saw? Strickland says, I don't have any, I've been there about four or five times in the past. That's actually quite a statement as well, to say that he'd been at that particular location 4 or 5 times. So he visited Mo at her friend 4 or 5 times previously. Anyway, Spittler says, Strickland, and I just don't have any, I've never actually driven. I've only been in a vehicle, in a car, I guess. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, I've never been there on a motorcycle, so I've never actually driven into the alley ever. Spittler, Strickland, so my experience before would be parking on the street, kind of at the front of the main house. Spittler, okay. Strickland, and then walking, I guess, I don't know. I think it's the kind of, it's an alley east-west. Now, before we kind of go on with that, I want to bring up, I just want to bring up something. Why am I having so much difficulty here? I want to bring up the alley that he may be talking about. So let's sort of go to that. Some images here of alleys. I think it's, these are some images of Caitlin, quite a sporty young woman. Seems like I'm getting every image except the alley. Is it going to be the last image? Okay, let's see if I can find it the old-fashioned way. Just by doing that. Okay, there we are. So I'm not really sure if that is the alley that they're talking about, the alley that sort of goes through there. I don't know if that is where he drove down with his bike. But, I mean, there is an alley in the story, right? Okay. And so it already feels a little bit strange that he is saying, you know, it's the first time I've ever gone there in my motorcycle. I've never really driven there. So, you know, that's sort of what he's getting at. Then he says, it's narrow. It's a narrow alley. Spittler, I just didn't see anything that comes to mind in terms of like things that are set in my mind that could have been unusual. Spittler, yeah. Or tripped a flag. So what they're getting at here is, Colin, did you see anything? Did you see someone? In other words, they're trying to get him to be a witness to this crime. They're kind of trying to solve it really, really quickly, right? And he's basically saying, I didn't really see anything. Strickland says, I'm just pulling into this alley, dropping a friend off. I mean, it wasn't really Spittler. Oh, of course. He says, I wasn't scanning. I mean, it's east. It's New East Austin. Spittler says, yeah, Strickland doesn't strike me as a place where I need to be. Spittler says, yeah, Strickland, on edge. So I can't say there's anything. Spittler says, okay, so as you, and then they sort of talk over each other. Strickland says that came to mind about that moment. Whenever we pulled up to this door, the bottom of the stairs, then he says, can you guys see that okay? He says, so as you're coming down the alley and you're pulling up, stop at the bottom of the stairs. Was there anybody like hanging out around there? Strickland says, I wouldn't be. And I think he's interrupted. I'm not sure if he was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, Spittler says, was the gate closed to the fence? Was the gate open? I think there is a kind of a gate going on over here, looks like. I'm in the way there, so let me do that. Can you see that looks like a gate over there? So he says, what fence? Spittler says, so you know, like, so you have the stairs that go up, and then you have like the little grassy area right here, and then like further behind that is an actual gate. Now, when he talks about grassy area. I'm not sure if he's talking about that area. Not sure if he's referring to that. It would make sense that he was, right? And then he says, you mean like on the same property? Spittler, yeah. Strickland, or do you mean on a different property? Spittler. I call it a grassy area. We've also got kind of a grassy verge in the Kylie Rodney case. Spittler says, I don't even know if I would. Now, I must say, when I read this, you sort of think one way, I think, to train law enforcement to be better at questioning and more effective in an investigative way is, I think they should have them read some of their own transcripts and just how garbled it is. Ask a question, get an answer. Ask a question, get an answer. I've just dealt with that in the John Benet Ramsey case. I was working on that before this, and it's a very simple question. What did you do with John Benet? How did you put her to bed? Did you read her a bedtime story? And it just ends up becoming so mixed up with chatter, right? I think they could really teach Ali to be more effective at questioning. Ask a question, execute your question, wait for the answer. Keep it kind of simple. Execute your question, wait for the answer. Don't talk over someone else. If they want to say more, let them say more, right? Another way to make sure that Ali get this right is have them actually either retype the transcript, and so in other words, retype all the nonsense all over again, or have them actually transcribe it themselves, not the whole thing, but just all of the fluff that is sort of unnecessary, right? Anyway, so he goes on here to say, something about I don't even know if I would. Strickland says, again, I don't have a frame of reference I don't have a visual impact of what the gate looks like. Spittler says here. So I don't really know whether they have an image in front of them like we do, but so that's also quite difficult to be hypothetical about the crime scene. That's another thing. Maybe you want to have a photograph of the crime scene in front of you so you can say, where were you standing? What did you see? Where did you park? All that kind of thing, and get a really clear idea. Strickland says, I couldn't tell you if it was closed or open. So you can't even say whether the gate was closed or open. Now, already that is a problem, because it's like if the gate is closed, then that suggests that the place is properly locked up, and you wouldn't impute some sort of third party, right? But if the gate's open, you can kind of say, well, someone is already in the house, kind of thing. The fact that he can't remember isn't really particularly helpful, is it? Okay. Strickland goes on to say, I imagine, yeah, it's a garage apartment and there's a garage. Spittler says, Strickland, so it makes sense there's a gate under the stairs. Spittler says, yeah. Strickland says, I couldn't tell you whether it was. Spittler, okay, then, yeah, nothing like that stood out to you. Strickland, no. Spittler, okay, then what about, Strickland interrupts, says, I don't remember anything ajar. I mean, again, I have a passenger in the most dangerous time on a motor. Well, not most. It's always when you're at low speed. It's always very danger, it's high chance. Well, this is going to be tough to get through. He interrupts himself, trying to be specific about the most dangerous time when you're on a motorbike. Spittler says, yeah. Strickland, of tip over because you don't have inertia. So at that point, I'm always really like focused on coming to rest without, tipping over. Yeah. So I wasn't like scanning. Spittler says, okay. Now, that seems like quite a lot of detail just about I stopped, and he's basically saying there's no way that I saw anyone because I stopped and And I was so focused on not trying to fall over on the motorbike that I didn't really notice anything. But did he not get off the motorcycle, right? Just want to see if I can bring up an image of the house. Just so that we can at least be quite clear about it. So that's one image, and then that's sort of another one. Yeah, well, anyway, so that's one sort of image, and you can see there's not really, sorry, it's not a really great image, but you can see there's not really a gate at the bottom here. And it's quite hard to reconcile that image with that. It's quite hard to figure out, okay, where oh, you know, to sort of orientate ourselves. This is another view sort of from the front towards that alley. So that seems to be the alley he's talking about. But again, the photography is quite difficult to, it's quite difficult to sort of reconcile what you're seeing. Here is another image, which I guess is better. So there you can see what looks like the exterior, not quite a palisade, but there's just another view. Even from this view, it's not very clear what is going on. And then there's this view. I suppose this is probably one of the better ones. So there you can see there's a sort of a wooden fence, perimeter fence going around the side. And that, what you see there, looks to me like what you're seeing there and there. So that's actually, I guess, a wooden fence. So one thing that you can see is it goes that way, then up, and then up again. And I don't think you can actually see that stepping up in this particular image. It's sort of cut off there, unfortunately. Can we find another image that's going to show us a little bit more? Can't seem to find it. Here is one. Here's one. So it's from the Austin American Statesman. If we go back just a moment there you can see it stepping up. There's that crime scene tape. But is it this house? It's hard to say. It's hard to know. It's frustrating that we've got such bad, like for the crime scene, there's just so much, such unclear images. You know, it definitely is frustrating. Definitely is frustrating. Okay, shall we continue? So he says something about the scene, and then I had my attention on Mo. She's, you know, I opened the case for her to get her things, and I think when he talks about case, it's a container on the back of the motorbike, and so I guess she had her towel in there or whatever, maybe a purse, and he said that was all I had in mind. He said, I mean, I would definitely note anything that would be like striking. Spittler says here, Strickland says out of the ordinary. Spittler says, okay, is there, whenever you stopped and you're sitting there, I know you mentioned something the last time about the garage door. So the last time he did mention something to do with the garage door. Strickland says, yes, the garage door was ajar, but I'm certain that was when I picked her up, which is around in the afternoon. Okay. So now it seems like he's saying the garage door was open when I picked her up. It wasn't when I dropped her off. See how complicated it's already getting. Strickland says, you know, 5 o'clock or something, and it was the garage door was this much open. Yeah. So this is already kind of opening the door to, it could be someone else. It could be, in other words, when he arrived there, there was some kind of intruder. Do you guys get that sense? Let's look at some of your comments. Caitlin must have noticed he took the motorcycle and 2 helmets. Wasn't the doorbell video of Caitlin's car during the day? I could be wrong. No, it's sort of late-ish it's late in the day, but I mean, it depends on where the light is as well. It looks like it's in the middle of the day. It isn't really. Okay. Anyway, let's continue. So he goes on to say, and I just remember saying, oh, your landlord, not your landlord, Cash's landlord, has a couple of cool Porsches. Spittler, yeah. So you could actually see inside the garage, you could see that there were, I guess, 2 Porsches, and so you noticed that. Strickland says, an old 944, and I think it was a Boxster S because of the garage was like open enough. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, you could see the tags on them. Spittler, okay. Strickland, but that was it. Spittler, whenever you came back, was that garage door, was it closed all the way now, or do you remember? Strickland says, I think it was closed at that point. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, I'm sure it was. I didn't notice. I would have noticed. Spittler, yeah. So can you see what's already happening? If you, Caitlin's counsel, you could kind of say that what is happening right here is that you've kind of got something to use to say maybe there was some unknown apparition, some unknown third party that's sort of running around that's opened the garage, who's going in and out, right? Some unknown sort of burglar, some unknown entity. You've already got that is being conjured through these statements, right? And that can kind of raise doubt. As long as you go down this alley, excuse the pun, you can kind of say, let's not talk about a love triangle. Let's not talk about Caitlin. Let's talk about a garage door that's open, and let's open that door and go into that whole area. Let's talk about, do you remember a gate being open or not? I'm not sure. And so your whole narrative is now moving away from Caitlin. So Strickland says he saw a white Porsche. Boxster, he says, I would have noticed because it's, it was dark. It was like almost twilight, and that car would have been white. I would have noticed it because I'm very perceptive of just. So now he's just saying now how perceptive he is, but a moment ago he said he didn't really notice anything. Anyway, Spittler says, yeah, Strickland, perceptive of color. From racing a bicycle, you hyper-tune to things. Spittler says, yeah. Strickland says crashes, everything. So I'm good at noticing things in my field. Spittler, okay. Strickland, so Spittler says, do you remember? Strickland says, didn't notice something white. Spittler, yeah. Strickland says, oh, it's the Porsche. Spittler, I got you. Strickland says, so I would be 99%, 90% sure it would have been closed. Spittler, okay. So all we've been dealing with so far was the garage door open or closed? Have we really taken the narrative anywhere? And so all of this would be good for, and this is the part that obviously it's highlighted by Kofa. That's what he wants to use, is what he wants to refer to. Strickland says, that's all that I can say. Spittler, and was there anything sitting like, because where Cash parks, right? Strickland says, I don't. Spittler says, so like there next to the stairs, there's that little carport there. Strickland says, okay, I pulled in under the stairs. Spittler says, yes. Strickland, okay. Spittler, yeah. And so was there any car right there? Strickland, no. Spittler, was there? Strickland says, not that I would have noticed, because I would have been in close proximity to where we pulled up. I stopped probably like, I would stop like, I don't have exact, I would stop 4 feet from the stairs, Spittler, yeah, Strickland. And I would have been in like the zone. Spittler says, okay, Strickland. I would have been trying to maneuver it, and I don't remember any obstacles of any kind there. So I think it was empty. Spittler, okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling really claustrophobic. There's almost like no mention of Mo. It's almost like she's invisible. All of this so far is about where are you parking your motorbike and do you notice the garage? On and on, all of that. It like doesn't go anywhere, right? Yeah, no wonder it's 487 pages. So then he says something about an empty spot. If there was a car there, I would have noticed it. Spittler, okay. Strickland, absolutely. Now, to me, there's a counter to all of this, is you could say, when you arrived home, was the Jeep there? When you arrived home, so when he drops Mo off, Mo's alive, and then theoretically goes basically straight home. When he goes home, is the Jeep there? And then one wonders, does he say, I just don't remember, or I parked around the back and I didn't see, what? That's the flip side to all of this. So we'll see what he says about that. So Splitter says, so you mentioned that originally, I think you said sometime like around 5:45 or something. I can probably help with the time. Sometime around that general time is whenever you went and picked her up originally. So that's the time that they went to the swimming pool, kind of late-ish afternoon. Strickland says, I can't. I would have to see my phone. Now, it seems like he can't remember what time he picked her up. Now, you would imagine that if it's the last time that he's ever seen her, and they made some arrangement, okay, I'll come pick you up and we'll go and swim, you would imagine that he would know. And now that's something he can't remember. Anyway, he says, Spittler says, of course, yeah. Strickland says, I texted her when he says, I potentially hit a traffic jam for the closure at essentially MLK near the stadium. Spittler says, yeah, Strickland. That was like insane because they had the entire MLK from Lavaca all the way to 35 was funneled to one lane. Spittler says, Strickland says, and there's a series of stoplights. It was a little clusterfuck of like people jammed. People can't get through the light because it's still traffic. Then another, just this way, escape issue of. So I actually went because I'm like a cyclist at heart. So I'm trying to avoid it. So Yeri is talking about traffic. And again, you kind of just got to wonder what is actually going on. Your girlfriend has skipped town like 3 days ago. Someone else that you knew has been shot dead, and this discussion, this chat is extremely banal, right? There's so much detail that's so totally unnecessary. Didn't you get that sense? He talks about trying to get through the traffic, and Spittler says, "Oh yeah." Strickland says, "I pulled towards this. This is when still like near the university." He says, "I've ridden my bike through there. I went to school at UT, so I know there's like bicycle routes up through there. All this detail. It's like it's almost like he's going out of the story to tell another story. He's saying, I've ridden another bike through there. I went to school at, I guess it's the University of Texas. He says, I know there's like bicycle routes up through there, and I was going to try to get onto. Anyway, I did like a couple of little loops looking for a way to get away from this thing that looks like a 5, like a 10-minute delay. Spittler just sort of lets him talk. He says, Strickland says, so when I saw there was an event or something, and there was little parking guards who were like, you can't go through there. You can't cut up to the. Anyway, it's neither here. I mean, it is relevant. I think he was going to say it's neither here nor there. Anyway, he says, but it's Claire Carter says, this is how you got there. So that's the first time I think his lawyer has spoken. Strickland says, this is how I got there the first time. Spittler says, yeah. Strickland says, so I don't know exactly when I arrived, because it was like, so it seems like what he's trying to say here is, because traffic was such a big snarl, he can't actually estimate, I guess, how long it took him to get somewhere and also what time he got there, right? Then Spittler says, of course. Strickland says, which I'm sure you can see, like Spittler, yeah, and of course, and I wasn't sticking you to a straight time. I just remember it was sometime around there, but what I was trying to get to was, this is the detective talking, was more of whenever you did get there, you stopped your motorcycle and you get off. Strickland says, just It's quite weird. He's just trying to say, you know, when did you get there? And instead of Strickland saying, I think it was after 5 or it was closer to 6 or whatever, he just says, Then he says, did you go upstairs at that point when he arrived? Strickland says, I did. I went up the stairs. That is so far the best part of this so far. Did you go upstairs? I did. I went up the stairs. Let's hope we're going to get more of this. Spittler says, and so as you go up the stairs, like, what do you see? Strickland says, I see Mo's bicycle travel case. Spittler says, Strickland says, bundled up just like as you would if you were, you'd unpacked your bike, and it's a bit floppy. It's a big floppy case that essentially fits over a bicycle. It's a travel case for the airport. Spittler, yeah. Strickland says, and I see that like almost like tack codes sitting like running parallel to the stairs on the deck. Spittler, okay. Strickland, and I see that to the right, I noticed that. Spittler, okay. And then I just go up to the door, I knock, she answers it. I don't think I texted. I'm not. I don't remember if I texted that I'm here or not. Spittler, yeah. Strickland says it's possible. So I walk up to the door. I knocked on it. Um, it's a tiny apartment. Spittler, yeah. Strickland. So she opened the door. I think we hugged. Spittler says, Strickland says probably I would see that as like obvious. And then I see her bike is like right next to the door. So here again is describing seeing her, when she opens the door, and he keeps referring to the bicycle. He doesn't seem to really address her. She was wearing this, she smiled at me, she said this to me, she had a cell phone in her hand, she was eating something, she said this to me or whatever. It's quite weird, right? Anyway, he says, so imagine this is the entry to the, and I guess he's drawing or something, where he's demonstrating. Spittler says, okay, yeah. Strickland, so she's here. I'm outside. I knock on the door. The bicycle's sitting to the left as you enter. Spittler, okay. Strickland, the couch is sitting right. They have a low couch. So I just come in and I sit right there. Spittler, okay. Strickland, on this couch. And after we hugged, she's rolling up like a towel, getting a bathing suit, putting it in, I think like a tote bag. And I didn't notice. We just started chatting. We hadn't seen each other in a few weeks. And I don't know exact. That was probably 3 to 5 minutes. So you can kind of imagine if, let me bring myself back a little bit. You can kind of imagine if, and I'm just thinking here, right? You can imagine if they are having, and I don't even want to say an affair because he's not married and she's not married, but if something is taking place between them, you can kind of imagine that maybe he arrives at this apartment, no one else is there, and you can imagine that there could be some intimacy taking place. There could be hugging, kissing, and other things, right? If you are being accurate about the time that you got there, then, and you say we were together alone for, let's say, 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes, that could address that question. But if you don't know and you say, well, I was stuck in traffic and I got there, and then she spent so much time wrapping something in a towel, and we hadn't seen each other for a long time, so we spoke for 3 minutes. Well, it could either be an innocent, I arrived really late after getting stuck in traffic, picked her up, and we didn't really do anything except embrace, and then we went off to where we were going, or something else happened. But do you want to be completely forthcoming about that, given what happened shortly after that? Do you say, when I saw her, she looked so beautiful, and I remember how much I missed her? She said, look at you, you look better than the last time I saw you, something like that, right? So can you see how that aspect could be part of the intrigue that we may be missing? Anyway, so he says something about that they were on the couch, and he says after we hugged, she's grabbing at, then he says she's rolling up like a towel, getting a bathing suit, putting it in like a tote bag, and then he said we just started chatting. And he says we hadn't seen each other in a few weeks, and I don't know exact. That was probably 3 to 5 minutes. Run the world. Thanks for signing up as a member. Cool. So Spittler says, yeah. Strickland says probably less than 5. He's actually saying less than 5. We didn't really speak that much. We didn't speak for more than 5 minutes. We spoke relatively little. Then he says, I don't know how it could be more than 5 minutes. Wow, he's really rubbing that part in. Spittler says, yeah. Strickland says, because there was no activity that she had to do to get ready. There was no activity. He says something about grabbing a couple of random pool things, like Spittler says, yeah. Strickland, a swimsuit and towel. Spittler says, okay. Strickland, putting them in this bag. Spittler, okay. Strickland says, and I don't remember. I think she was wearing sandals, because I just made a mental note, because I like people to wear closed shoes on my motorcycle. Spittler says, yeah, I bet. Strickland, because it's massive. It's a massive. When shit goes wrong on a motorcycle, it can be really catastrophic. So it's quite strange how he thinks about her feet, and then thinks about sort of metal and catastrophe. It's just quite weird how his mind is going. Isn't the first thing he mentions his feet? He doesn't mention her face. He doesn't mention her hands. He doesn't mention her smile or anything like that. Her feet is almost the least personal part of a person. It's sort of, if you don't look at them, you look at their feet. Anyway, Spittler says, yeah, Strickland. So that was just something I think I noted. Spittler, Strickland, yeah. So then we close the door. We go down the steps. So, if he was worried about the shoes she had on, why not say that? Why not just say, do you want to put on proper shoes? So it's kind of an observation that doesn't seem to really take you anywhere. Anyway, Strickland says they go to the motorcycle. Right. Then he says something extremely small detail. I don't know if you remember or not. So whenever you go up and you knock on the door, this is from the detective. She comes to the door. Do you remember if she actually unlocked the door, or did she just kind of reach and open it? Strickland says, I don't remember that. Is that strange? he can't remember if she opened the door or kind of unlocked the door. So also, if you remembered that she unlocked the door, you'd think, well, that's secure. If you don't remember that the door was locked, then it's like someone could have, maybe you don't remember her, someone could have actually already been in there at that stage, right? Spittler says, okay. Strickland says, I didn't have that note. Spittler says, okay. And so then Strickland says, I grew up in Austin. We never locked our front door. But I mean, she's not from here. I suppose that's a valid point. Spittler says, yeah. Strickland says, but she is from Vermont. So, I mean, I don't know. But I don't know. I've never considered like security. Spittler, yeah. Strickland says, as a thing, I have no reference of a relationship. Now, bear in mind, earlier he said, I'm very vigilant. I notice things. I notice things like colors. I noticed the Porsche. I knew it was white, right? Anyway, Spittler says, okay. Strickland says, with door security. But he's also noticed her sandals, right? Then he says, I don't recall, Spittler. So you know kind of with what her routine would be, like if she just got home someplace or just walked inside someplace, like, you know, like how she would settle down or relax, what those steps would be. And I suppose that's a reference to Mo, right? Not to Caitlin. So can I do that? No, it makes it a bit too small. Okay, so anyway, he says, in terms of ritual or routine, he says, I've no idea. I know she went swimming, and when we were still at the pool, she used the towel to change her bathing suit top. So that's quite interesting. She didn't go into a change room. She put the towel over herself and changed, which seems to suggest they're quite familiar with one another. Spittler says, yeah. Strickland says, I don't think she changed her bottoms. I don't. Again, this is all, I don't know these exact, I remember the top. I believe she changed into a black top, as I remember from her full bathing suit. Spittler says, Strickland says, which I think was, Deep Eddy has cameras so they could tell you exactly. Spittler says, yeah. Strickland says, but it was, I believe, a rusty bottom, and she changed her top to a black sports bra. Spittler, yeah. Strickland goes on to say, let's do it like that. He goes on to say, I don't know if she wore that or if she changed into that before swimming, but I guess after swimming, she went up to Pool Burger. She definitely changed her top. Spittler, okay. Strickland. So that's, and then slipped on like the sundress, which I honestly can't. I remember she had a blue one that she had taken to our trip in West Texas in October, but I can't confirm like what color. It's just said something about blue, but anyway, Spittler says, yeah. Strickland, for whatever reason, it's just not in my head. Again, you can see that. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, whatever color that was. Spittler, okay. Strickland says, so routine, sorry, routine would be, I imagine I just came, I don't want to say anything because I don't know. I don't even want to say anything because I don't know. Spittler says, I got you. Strickland says, I can imagine what a woman's routine would be after coming home from a swimming pool. If it were me, I would, like an hour, it's hot, you like whatever, 2 hours. So maybe the swimsuit was wet, maybe not. I've no idea. If it were me, I would potentially change out of a swimsuit, but I can't. Spittler says, no, of course, you're not entirely sure. I get that. So I don't know about you, but isn't this whole thing feeling very, very wishy-washy? It doesn't really take you anywhere. You don't get a sense of his connection to her. You don't get a sense of her connection to him. You don't get a sense of any sort of thing about, does Mo mention Caitlin? Does he mention Caitlin? It's kind of very randomly wishy-washy, right? Yeah, word salad. Jennifer says he seems fixated on the weirdest things. So again, you've got to ask, is what he's saying really going to help Ali, or is it going to really help the vagueness? Is it going to help Caitlin's counsel, or is it not going to really help anyone? Maybe it's going to help him, kind of thing. I had another thought that I wanted to share. I'm just trying to think what it was. Okay, maybe it'll come back to me. Yeah, a lot of you are saying he is wishy-washy. Oh, that's what I want to say. So do you remember right at the beginning of this, Detective Spittler said, you know, you said some things, I checked up on them. I'm so grateful for you for being so truthful. Now, when I heard that, I thought, aren't you laying that on a bit thick? Or are you trying to sort of butter him up? Are you trying to get him onto your side? It felt a little bit like Coda and Chris Watts, right? Obviously, I'm not going to say that Strickland is like Chris Watts, but that the detective was using a sort of Mr. Nice Guy ploy. And if I was the detective at this point, I would start getting quite pissed off. Like, dude, give me something, right? We kind of going in circles, you're wasting my time, right? But what is kind of going on is you're kind of getting the sense that Spittler's trying to play the good cop, and he's trying to just sort of not show his irritation and kind of let Strickland sort of, I don't know, become more comfortable perhaps. And I think that even came up as well. Which chair would you be more comfortable in? He wants Strickland to feel comfortable. And you can imagine someone who's at the center of a love triangle, if that's what this is, wouldn't feel terribly comfortable, that they would feel, by definition, uncomfortable. Tasha says, why is he answering like a casual observer? Someone else says, he seems to be avoiding accountability. Okay, Zircon says, it's all very vague. So let's continue. He says something about he's never worn her, and then his lawyer interrupts and says, you don't know her habits. So his own lawyer actually steps in there and says, you don't know her habits, so don't really go there. And Spittler says no. Strickland says no, I really don't know, but I mean, I've not been a woman. I don't know how long you want to be in a swimsuit. I would imagine that women want to be in a swimsuit less than men do. That's my experience. I've got a background in swimming, and I tend to be a little bit lazy. I can sometimes wear a swimsuit even when it's not particularly pleasant, when it's cold, wet, or uncomfortable. But a woman has a lot more of a wet fabric to deal with that's going to be colder and more uncomfortable. Plus, it's going to make more clothing wet than a man's swimsuit. So I don't think it takes a genius to say, I think a woman would want to get out of a swimsuit sooner than a man would. Is that really so hard to say? Stephanie says, I hate wearing wet swimsuits. But the whole question is here is, did she take off her wet swimsuit? And where were you, I guess, when that happened? And what were you doing? Where was your swimsuit, I guess? Anyway, so he says, Strickland says, so do you know if Caitlin knows anybody in that area? That's quite strange. Just in the middle of nowhere, Caitlin's name comes up. So what does he say? Strickland says, do you know if Caitlin knows anybody in that area? Spittler says, do I know if she knows anybody? So that is quite a sudden change of subject, and it actually comes from Colin. And it actually takes the detective by surprise. He's like, do I know if she knows anybody? Now, I think this is with reference maybe to New York. You know, she's flown somewhere. Do you know if she knows anybody in that area? Unless he's talking about that part of Austin. I don't know what he's talking about myself. But this is just to your knowledge, and I'm not trying to trick you into anything like that. I'm just trying to see if Strickland says, I feel like a bit last time I was here. I mean, I know it's you and Detective Associate's job. I respect that and I totally understand it. But I just feel like I was like literally like pushed into a corner and just had in a state of shock. And I don't know what I don't know what the law is about, what you can tell a witness or a suspect. Spittler says, uh-huh. I must say that was a big jump. I don't know whether we are jumping through the transcript. That says page 68. That says page 69. It feels a bit like we've just jumped into another section of the transcript, doesn't it? Like we're in a different part of the timeline. But anyway, what you get here is a sense of pushback from Colin, basically saying something about, well, Spittler says, I'm not trying to trick you. And Strickland says something about being pushed into a corner. So you kind of get the sense that at this point, the fluffy discussion that has preceded this has become quite a lot more serious, where there's a little bit more of swordplay going on, like semantic swordplay. The detective saying something quite on the chin, and Strickland is responding quite on the chin, right? Stephanie says, are there things redacted in this type of document? You must bear in mind that this is from a motion by Kofa. So, and you can see that it's yellow highlighted. I didn't do that. So you get the idea that he's highlighting the best stuff for his case, right? So obviously what we're missing from this transcript is the stuff maybe that he wouldn't want to highlight, right? And so one wonders whether we're going to get hold of that stuff. Anyway, so he says, I imagine it's anything, and that would make total sense to me. But from my personal standpoint, I don't know. And I like my world essentially just like shaken. And Spittler says, of course, Strickland. Well, but then yourself, and the other detective were then just like pushing a narrative based on something that I don't know. Now, I always find it unnerving when I hear law enforcement or a suspect or a witness talking about narrative, because it feels like the people who should be talking about that are journalists and sort of people analyzing a case. For someone to be inside a case thinking about what the narrative looks like, I don't know, it just feels odd, doesn't it? Anyway, he says the other detective were pushing a narrative, and you can imagine how Kofa would like this person saying that to them. Are you pushing a narrative? Then he says, based on something that I don't know if you're obligated to tell the truth. So in a gentle way saying, you know what, you're pushing a narrative on me. I don't know if you're telling me the truth about that. Spittler says, uh-huh. Strickland says, and I don't care. It's not personal. His lawyer then says, if you don't, and if you don't want to answer, then you don't have to. Spittler says, exactly. Carter says, or you can say you don't know. And then Strickland says, I don't know. And we don't know what the question was. That's not part of the context here. Spittler says, okay. Strickland, I don't know, honestly. It's a situation where I don't know the code to Caitlin's phone. So I think what that's got to do with is, did Caitlin block messages on her phone? Did he have access to Caitlin's phone? Did Caitlin have access to his phone? I think it's got something to do with that. Do you agree? Spittler says here, Strickland says, because I don't want to know the code to Caitlin's phone. Spittler says, I got you. Strickland says, because I don't even want to. I've had girlfriends before where I've looked at their phone in the past and I don't even it was just such a situation that I've decided in my life I don't want to know codes to people's personal things. Now that's quite strange. He's kind of saying here that I've looked at their phone in the past. I don't know if that's a reference to girlfriends or a girlfriend, because he says I've had girlfriends plural before. I have looked at their phone in the past. I don't know if that should be phone or phones. And so he said, I've done that before, but I didn't really want to do that with Caitlin. Anyway, then he says, so I don't know. I don't know if she has any friends there. I don't know. So that's coming back to, does she have friends there? I don't know whether that's a reference to New York. I don't know whether they're talking about why has she gone to New York? Does she have friends there? And so you've also got to wonder, would Colin know that her sister's in New York? What do you guys think? Do you think Colin would know whether Caitlin's sister lives in New York? I mean, he's being asked, I think he's been asked, do you know if she's got any friends there? Now, where do you think there is? Where else could it be? I suppose it could be Costa Rica, but I think this is dated the 17th, before she went to Costa Rica. Anyway, I'm just being clear. We're making an assumption here, not being able to see the full context. Anyway, Strickland says, I don't know if she has any friends there. I don't have any information on that. What about social media? Couldn't you look at her social media regarding that? Spittler says, okay, I didn't know if maybe she had ever said, like, I'm going to hang out with so-and-so, or I mean, just kind of something around along those lines. I know. Strickland says, I mean, she has a lot of friends in the cycling community. She has, women, mostly women, that I've introduced her to just to kind of, because Spittler says, uh-huh. Strickland says, was relatively new to Austin when we met. And these are all just cool, empowered women who do amazing things, like go on multi-day bicycle trips alone together and do fun things like that, which I think is super healthy. And yeah, I can't answer. I don't know. Spittler says, okay. Spittler says, do you know? Colin Strickland responds, she has a lot of, she gets her nails done. She, has like laser hair removal. I don't know. She goes to yoga classes. Spittler says, okay. Strickland, so that's all I can. Spittler, do you know if she's friends with Cash? In other words, is Caitlin friends with Mo's friend, the person Mo was staying with? So again, I don't know if this is in reference to friends in the area or friends in New York. It's hard to know. Strickland says, I don't believe so. Spittler, okay. Strickland, I mean, it's a relatively small cycling community, but Cash was, I've not seen Cash many times. I recognized her for sure when I met Mo at the driveway in October. So he'd actually met her before, about 6 or 7 months earlier, same place. Right? That's quite interesting. And he says, and Cash was there. And Mo officially introduced me to Cash. But women in the cycling community, it's not like 20 people, it's like 200 women and, 1,000 men. Spittler, Strickland. That's the kind of, so there's networks, there's overlap. There's this weekly bike race that's not actually happening this year because the city of Austin is purchasing the racetrack. I'm not sure the driveway. Spittler, Strickland, yeah. So I don't know what their personal connection would be. Spittler says, okay. Strickland would be Spittler, okay. Strickland, in terms of overlap, Have they met? Spittler says, okay, what about, I guess last time you said Caitlin has a sister here, Strickland, Christy, right? So Spittler says, I guess the last time you said Caitlin has a sister here. So I guess the last time that they spoke to one another, Caitlin said, Colin said, Caitlin has a sister here. And then he mentions Christy. And then he says, no, she now lives in Vermont. So I don't know whether this is still part of the same transcript. That's not what I expected. She now lives in Vermont. Apparently she met a man on the internet through mutual connect. They're both really into, Caitlin and her sister are very into astrology and things like that. Spittler, okay. So here you would kind of imagine that there would be a mention of New York, wouldn't you? What does Marlene Stewart says? Yeah, it does seem very superficial. Anyway, he says this guy, her sister met him and moved to his farm. There he says New York at last. He says a farm he operates in New York about 2 months ago, I believe. And then he says approximately 2 months ago. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, yeah. Spittler, okay. So Caitlin doesn't have any other family that you know of that's here in Austin. Strickland, in Austin, no. Spittler, or even like surrounding greater Austin area. Strickland, no. She's from the Detroit area, Fredonia, Detroit. Spittler, okay. Strickland, so I know her brother's in the Detroit area, her mother's in the Detroit area, and her sister is now in Upper New York State. Spittler, okay. So can you think of any reason why Caitlin's car would be in that area of Cash's house? So in a way, what's been happening, the way I understand it, is the detective has been excluding all the possibilities for why Caitlin's vehicle could possibly be in that area, right? She doesn't have friends there. She doesn't have family there. She doesn't know Cash. So why else would she be in that area, right? Strickland says, I think it could be that she went to see I've heard her mention like a spiritual, just like an energy worker. Now here it's starting to get really interesting. So now he's saying the reason he thinks Caitlin may have been in the area of Cash's house is because she went to see an astrologer. It's got nothing to do with him. It's got nothing to do with her following them or a love triangle. It's totally random. She was interested in an astrologer. Are you starting to get the heebie-jeebies over here? You're starting to get a bit of a strange feeling. Yeah, I also kind of get that sense. So he says that is on the east side. That could possibly be in that area. But this says, okay, how often would she go and try to see that person, or how often has she spoken of trying to see that person? Strickland said, I don't remember. I just don't track. She knows I'm not really ascribing to astrology and that kind of greater ethos of human spirituality and complexity. So I mean, I don't feel like it's something that she would talk to me about. Now, what's quite interesting here is, I think I'm going to just bring myself back a little bit over here. So what's quite interesting about this aspect is he says something about, I just don't track, meaning I don't keep track of her movements. But then do you notice that he sent a text message as soon as he left mode to say, I'm going over there and ... And so doesn't that kind of seem to be slightly out of line with what he's saying there. If he says, I just don't track, right, it's almost like he's saying, you know, I don't keep track of the people that she's seeing. The other thing is, you must remember, he's a professional bike racer. So you are very vigilant to your competitors. You are keeping track of your training. You're keeping track of your fitness. You're keeping track of races and all that kind of thing. And you are literally tracking, you know, you've got to keep track of someone who's in front of you, and you've got to keep track of people who are behind you. So why wouldn't you use that mindset of being very aware of where you are in a particular hierarchy, in a particular dynamic? If you do that in sport, why wouldn't you do that in a sort of love triangle situation, or in a I'm somewhere where I'm not supposed to be situation, right? Does that make sense? I mean, it just seems a little bit okay. So let's go back to that. Do you follow what I'm saying about saying I don't keep track of things, but you are like a professional athlete. Your job is to, when you're racing, to keep track of who's in front of you and how many minutes you're behind, and how many miles are left in the race, and keep track of your speed and your heart rate and your watts, right? It's all about that. It's all about keeping track, right? Anyway, so he says, I don't feel like it's something she would talk to me about. But this is okay, Strickland. Just like some kind of, you know, any other personal appointment. Spitter says, Strickland says, so I don't have any like distinct memory of like another date recently. Spitter says, yeah. Strickland says, and then when she went to see this person, Spitter says, okay, do you know if Caitlin lets anybody like just borrow her car on a regular basis? So now that's quite you would think, kind of an open and shut one. Either she lets people drive around a car and it happens all the time, or she doesn't. Now let's see how he answers that. He says, her sister used to borrow it regularly, or I mean semi-occasionally, not regularly, but besides that, nobody comes to mind, no. So her sister's in New York, right? Instead of saying, yeah, well, no one really is going to be using a car. The only person who could be driving a car is her. He's thinking of her sister in New York driving a car. Anyway, then he says, okay, so normally she would be the one driving her car. It wouldn't necessarily be like if somebody were to have called her. I mean, not necessarily family. Strickland says, Spitter says, but if it's just like a friend of hers, if somebody called and said, hey, can I borrow your car? Would she be like, okay, yeah, let's see what he says. You know, cool, you can use it. Would she be like, yeah, I'll pick you up and you can drive yourself around? Strickland says, no. So he says, I'll pick you up and drive you around. Strickland says, no, she's not paranoid about her belongings, really. That's quite a strange answer. If somebody called and said, can I borrow your car? Would she be like, okay, yeah? And his answer is, she's not paranoid about her belongings, really, which sounds to me like he's saying she would let somebody drive her car. Now, if you think about this from another perspective, just hypothetically, let's say there's A, B, and C. A is the man, B is the woman who has been killed and sees another person in this scenario. Now, A is asked about the circumstances of B's death, and A really cares about B. And the question is, but he also cares about C. And he also cares about A. But then the question is, do you think C drove to B, or do you think somebody else drove to B? Now you would imagine, I'm really concerned about B, and you know what? I think I should tell you that, in my opinion, I don't think it's likely that anyone else drove that person's car. You would imagine a statement like that, wouldn't you? Unless, of course, if he doesn't believe that. Anyway, so he says she's not paranoid about her belongings. He says, I think that especially that car is just kind of, at this point, just kind of a utility to her. She's kind of minimizing her car, that, you know, she doesn't really care about her car. It's just a thing that she uses, you know. I don't know about you. I don't think about my car that way. I would care who's, well, no one's really ever driven my car for any real length of time. I don't know how you guys feel. Borrowing a car is at a different level, yeah. So Spittler says, yeah. Strickland says, so no, it's not inconceivable at all. So I think what he's saying is somebody else could have been driving a car. It's not inconceivable at all. Spittler says, okay, so a lot of stuff that we kind of found out, I guess there was some sort of event that I guess the cycling community was at. And I don't know if this was like, so now he's changing the subject. He says, I don't know if this was a race or like a dinner, but it sounded like it was some sort of event where a lot of different cyclists were together sometime in January of this year, maybe around like the end of January, possibly. Colin Strickland says, what do you mean? In where? Splitter says, I'm not entirely sure where exactly either, but it sounds like this event you were there, Caitlin was there, Mo was there, and sounds like some other cyclists were there as well. Was there an event or anything that Strickland says, do you mean in Austin? Now, I think what's going on is Spittler is trying to figure out if there are any precedents for jealousy, right? Now, if you think about it like this, I don't know about you guys, if you think about it like this, maybe this is a bad argument, but if Caitlin was jealous, if Caitlin was a jealous person, if Caitlin was jealous enough to do something extreme, do you think she would be like very loosey-goosey about, I don't really care who drives my car? Let me say that again. If she's quite possessive and jealous about, you know, someone who she's in a relationship, not like normal, healthy jealous, because jealousy can be quite healthy sometimes. I mean, you should care if someone you love is not faithful to you. You know, it's good to care about that. But it's bad if you want to take matters into your own hands in an extreme way. Now, the question is, if you're really jealous, are you going to not be jealous about your things, your possessions? Just an interesting psychological observation there. So I think what the detective's trying to get to now, and I think we're going to just go another 10 minutes or so, is trying to get to the issue of, wasn't there an incident where you went somewhere, and I think it was a race, and Mo was there, and Caitlin was there as well, and they actually encountered one another. And I think it was the time where text messages were exchanged, where Mo said something like, I'm confused about us. Do you remember that? I think that is what Spittler's angling at, but he's gotten the information from another source. And I was trying to get Colin to talk about that, and now let's see what's going to happen, right? So let's bring that up. So he says, how are you not sure? And he says it again. He says, well, I don't really know exactly where all of this took place. I mean, obviously, you know, we were able to look through Mo's phone. So that is how he knows, right? And that's, in a way, playing his card, saying, I know this for a fact. So it's quite interesting the way Strickland is sort of trying to find out how much do you know here. So he literally says to him, he literally says, how are you not sure? And then he says, Spittler says, you know, she mentioned something about seeing you and seeing Caitlin at this event and everybody sitting at a table and eating. And then we found other phone calls of people that were Strickland now, at this point, now that it's pretty clear that the officer knows what he's talking about, now he says, oh, would it have been the cyclocross world championships in Bentonville? Splitter says, I'm not sure. Was that around January? We could look it up. Strickland says, Fayetteville cyclocross world championships. Is that was literally the world championships of a particular style of bike racing. So he wants to talk about that. He says, yeah, and I traveled to the event with Caitlin, and I don't know if we met there or traveled there, but yeah, we stayed at a hotel, and yeah, we attended that event. Well, he doesn't know if they met there or traveled there. Spittler says, okay. Strickland says, and I mean, there were several dinners. Oh, okay, so it's quite hard for me to remember this major incident between Mo and Caitlin. There were several dinners. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. There were several dinners over the course of, you know, it was like a big deal for the cycling community. Yeah, in terms of a lot of people gathering from around the country. So you can see why Kofa would really like this material, because it's basically Strickland saying, I can't think of any time that Caitlin, you know, I don't know, maybe Caitlin saw Mo. I don't know if Mo saw Caitlin. I can't really think that there's any jealousy issue. Really, I can't really, was that in January? I really can't think of anything. We had lots of dinners. So you can see how this really fits the narrative of, I'm not sure what you're saying about jealousy, right? Anyway, so Strickland says here, there was a dinner for I believe it was our, I can't remember who put it on. I think it was the people. There was I guess Visit Bentonville is a kind of cycling. I don't know if it was Visit Bentonville or Meteor. Meteor's a sponsor of Mo and I. Now, just that paragraph, to me, I feel like I'm getting to know Strickland, the way that he talks and the way that he is to some extent. And also, it feels like sometimes when he speaks in this way, it seems like he's speaking quite rapidly. He interrupts himself. It seems like he's kind of, what's the word? Seems to be dancing around a particular point. And it seems like he does this sometimes, right? Elise, thanks very much for that. Let me read that again, and let me ask you whether it feels like dancing. Now, what Spittler's trying to do is get him to sort of say, okay, so there was this encounter with Mo and Caitlin, and this is what happened. And so I think he realizes, Jeepers, Strickland realizes that the detective knows about this because they've got Mo's phone. And now he says the following. Just listen to the words. He says, so Spittler says, was there at any point a moment where Mo was trying to talk to you during the event? And Strickland says, yeah, there was a dinner for I believe it was our, I can't remember who put it on. I think it was the people. There was I guess Visit Bentonville is kind of a cycling. I don't know if it was Visit Bentonville or Meteor. Meteor's a sponsor of Mo and I. Now, it's quite a simple question. Was there a moment that Mo tried to talk to you? Just yes or no. Was there a moment when someone tried to talk to you? That's really all. do you remember talking with Mo or Mo trying to talk to you? And then Colin responds, and then he trails off. Do you remember Mo trying to talk to you at a at the event, at any time during the event? So do you remember trying to talk to her or her trying to talk to you at the event? Let's go through it one more time. Yeah, there was a dinner for I believe it was our, I can't remember who put it on. I think it was the people. There was a, I guess Visit Bentonville is a kind of cycling. I don't know if it was Visit Bentonville or Meteor. Meteor's a sponsor of Mo and I. Yes or no? Were you trying to talk to each other? And so all Spittler says is, uh-huh. And then Strickland says, so I mean, I saw Mo multiple times that weekend, just that, you know, it rides for the media, events for them. And at this pizza joint where I totally forgotten about it, and I got a text from my friend Payson, another professional athlete, saying, hey, well, I think Payson. So now it's like, did you talk to Mo or did Mo talk to you? And he's saying, yeah. I spoke to this other friend of mine. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I spoke to this other friend. Yeah, he's another professional athlete. Let's talk about him, right? And he does kind of say, I saw her lots of times. So in a way, that's his way of answering. Did you talk to her? Well, I saw her, right? So then he says, somebody's saying, hey, are you coming to this thing? And I said, yes. I mean, I'd forgotten what time it was and I had an obligation. So, yeah, I went over to this pizza place and I went alone. So he's kind of making it seem like he's not with anyone or whatever. Someone said, I wish the investigator would get to the point. The problem is he doesn't want to antagonize Colin. Colin is an important witness, is an important asset. Even if he doesn't want to cooperate, he's nevertheless an important asset, and he's got to try and sort of allow Colin to dictate what is going on here, and that is what's happening. He's dictating it, and that's why you hear the detective just basically goes, lets him sort of get through that, and then they go on to the next thing. So then he says, and just like sat with the group and got some dessert because I had already eaten with Caitlin, and then I went back to the there's a party at one of the, I forgot who, a cycle, this awesome cyclist I knew that bought out the tower roofing thing bar, the 21 Spittler, Strickland, not the 21C, the momentary. So yeah, that was the sequence of events. I sat at a table with Mo and about 10 other people, just chatted with Mo and another professional, Sarah Sturm, at a table, and then went back to this party. So that was a long spiel to eventually get to the point of, I sat at a table with Mo and 10 other people, and then in the next sentence, just chatted with Mo and another professional, Sarah Sturm. So, like on the simple question, did you talk to Mo or did Mo talk to you? I spoke to Mo, but I also spoke to another professional woman, and there were 10 people around, right? Okay. I see we're at 134. I think let's just get to the end of this part, and then we're going to call it a day. Spittler says, okay. Strickland says something about that Caitlin was at. It says, and then I went back to this party event thing that Caitlin was at. Spittler, okay. How was Caitlin during that time? I guess my understanding, she wasn't too happy whenever she saw Mo, right? And again, this part's highlighted. So obviously, you'd imagine Caitlin's counsel likes the response that Strickland is getting. You know, it's good for the Caitlin wasn't jealous narrative, right? So this is how he responds. He says, I guess my understanding was she wasn't too happy whenever she saw Mo, meaning my understanding was that Caitlin wasn't really happy whenever she saw Mo. He doesn't use the word jealous, but that's what he's talking about. Strickland answers, I mean, I don't know, I can't tell you exactly. She's kind of a guarded person. She was just, she was always she just wasn't, I don't know. It's hard to say. I just can't read exactly what a woman is feeling. Does that ring a bell to the style that we dealt with a moment ago? In other words, when you may be dancing a little bit, right? So it's quite a specific question. Is Caitlin not too happy when she sees Mo? Let's go through that answer again. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you exactly. She's kind of a guarded person. She was just, she was always just, she just wasn't. I don't know. It's hard to say. I can't read exactly what a woman is feeling. And all he really has to say is, how was Caitlin during that time? My understanding is she wasn't too happy whenever she saw Mo. No, she was fine. Or, yeah, she wasn't terribly happy. She was fine or she wasn't fine. But instead I don't know. I can't tell you exactly. She's kind of a guarded person. She was just, she always just, she just, I don't know. It's hard to say. I can't read exactly what a woman is feeling. Spittler, Strickland, continuing. In terms of like love, some people are, I don't know women. I can't tell you that. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, I can't speak to like how she was. Spittler, Strickland. In terms of, we had a relationship hiatus, and Caitlin we were after Mo was in Austin for a week, and Mo and I had broken up with Caitlin before Mo came to town. Again, it's a really big answer to what was Mo okay? Sorry, was Caitlin okay with seeing Mo? And there's kind of a lot of dancing going on. Spitter says, Strickland. And then I actually did not know that she was coming to Austin in October. I had no idea. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, we hadn't discussed, and that I don't think so, because it felt like a surprise. And then she was here, and I said, oh, let's hang out. And so I was mentally ready to kind of move on. And I know after Mo left town, Caitlin's things were still at my house. We were sleeping in separate rooms, and effectively, Caitlin was on Bumble. I know she had went on several dates with people, and I never asked what they were, what extent they were evolving a relationship. Spittler, Strickland. But I know she had several men that she was dating of sorts, and I was fine with it. I mean, that was kind of the understanding, of course. Spittler, Strickland. So yeah, it just seems very weird to me that there would be any dwelling on fixating on a person. Note, I'm not going to use the word jealous. Dwelling on fixating on a person. I'm not going to use the word jealous. Let's not say the word jealous. Let's say dwelling on fixating on a person. Then he says, Strickland, when she was like moving on to Spittler, yeah. Strickland, other relationships, at that time. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, that's all I can say. Spittler, do you know if Caitlin ever tried to call Mo or send her messages through, like Instagram or anything? Strickland, I know that right after in October, before, like right when I'd started essentially seeing Mo, just hanging out with Mo in Austin, Caitlin did call her and pretty much just said, hey, do you know that I pretty much live at Colin's house? Well, I don't know exactly what was. I have no idea. Spittler, of course. Strickland, I didn't really dive in, but I do know she called her, and Mo was like, that was really weird. Some random person called me and asked me, I felt so ashamed. Like, I'm just so sorry. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, that was my ex-girlfriend I broke up with, but I also knew Mo had just broken up with her ex-boyfriend. So she said. So it seemed just like, I don't know, being in relatively similar situations. Spittler, yeah. Strickland, at least in my mind, that's what I was. Spittler, okay, yeah. If you could hang on real quick. I'm so sorry. I have to deal. I've got to take this call. I'll be right back. Claire Carter now speaks. She says, we're being recorded right now. So, don't uh, bear that in mind. When he leaves the room, we're still being recorded. Strickland, Carter, right now, okay. I would rather you, Strickland. I feel like they're just leading a narrative. They're just trying to lead me along. And do I have to answer? Carter, here's what you do. Here's what you do. You don't have to answer. We can walk out at any time. Okay, Strickland. I don't know whether that's Carter. It's totally permissible. It's nothing they can hold against you. It is you. You would be finished talking, and I'm happy to do that for you. If what I would tell you in general is, if you don't remember something, don't try to remember. Carter says you don't need to speculate. Don't speculate. And I think you're trying to be helpful, but if even if you're just answering a question in terms of what I would usually do in these circumstances, Strickland, right, it's not relevant. Carter, then you don't know. Strickland, it's not. Carter, you don't know, okay? But also, if you're ready to get to the cheek swab and go, we can get to the cheek swab and go. Another thing you can, Strickland, I don't know why I want to help with anything I can, but at this point it's just like I feel like they're just trying to. Carter, then why don't you, Strickland, lead a narrative, lead me. Carter, then why don't you, Strickland, things that they can do on their own essentially. Carter, yeah. So why don't you ask him to ask you specific questions, and then you, instead of guessing or recreating answers, try to answer in a short, factual way. So what's quite interesting here is we are going a little bit over time. What is quite interesting here is you get the sense that he wants to leave. And what is the question that's being asked? Well, is Caitlin jealous? Did Caitlin and Mo encounter one another? Did Caitlin call Mo? I don't want to talk about that. Can we go, right? You'd actually imagine, why is that such a difficult question to deal with? And so anyways, lawyer says, again, Colin, we can walk out, we can get your cheek swabbed. And you kind of get the idea that he's there to get a cheek swab, and they kind of ask him questions as part of that. And he didn't really expect that, maybe, or maybe he did. That's why he brought his lawyer along. Anyway, she says, I know you want to be helpful, but if it's too much, you don't have to. You've been helpful. You can also tell him that you don't like where the narrative is going, and I don't like what you're trying to get me to say. And if we can be just have real specific questions and answer, because I don't have any knowledge, because you don't. Strickland, if I had any knowledge, I wouldn't be in this position. Carter, that's right. So what I find quite interesting is when you look at the question and answer from the detective, and how kind of erratic and messy it is, and you look at the conversation he's having with his lawyer, it's far more fluent and effective. Do you notice that? Interesting observation, isn't it? To juxtapose kind of an interrogation with a conversation where, it's definitely quite interesting that. Carter says, that's right. I see you being very factual about the things that you experienced and saw, right? Like, I saw a Porsche. I was careful on the motorcycle. I walked into the apartment. I sat down on the couch. I see you being factual about those things. And then I see you trying to figure out the significance of these questions. Like, do you know if she had any friends? And so if you don't know, then I would encourage you to rather than try to work their narrative in any way, Strickland says, piece it together, yeah. Carter says, just answer that you don't know. Strickland says, okay. Carter, okay. Is there something you wanted to say last time that you don't feel like you got to say? I think you can say that. Strickland, I have something to say. Fuck you guys for manipulating me. Carter, well, Strickland, someone's grieving, but that's not relevant. Carter, well, you can say, I feel like you're manipulating me. I'm grieving. Can I just answer the questions? Now, I seem to remember seeing that somewhere. Fuck you guys for manipulating me. Now, what he's actually doing there is he's saying it in a kind of a role play. He's saying it to his lawyer. It's not actually said directly, but nevertheless, this is gold for Kofa, that the police are manipulating him and so on and so on and so on. And so can't you also then take that and say, aren't you also manipulating, didn't you also manipulate my client? Right? That's the whole scenario that's taking place here. Okay, I just want to try and get to the end of this. She says you don't have to participate at all. You have given your narration of events. You have been questioned hard about it. Today they're following up in a way that it seems less about you and more like trying to try out other theories. And if you don't want to be part of trying out the other theories, you don't have to be. Strickland, I don't, because this comes back to if anything that's relevant, I would. Carter, you're not in a position to know. Strickland, well, no. If anything was relevant, and if then we wouldn't be in this position because I would have taken a different course of action in my life to not. Carter, you wouldn't be in this situation, and nobody else would be either. Strickland, nobody's in a situation like this, so it's Carter. Well, I guess you're probably going to have to say that, Strickland, yeah. Carter, and I think I'd be specific. Look, it seems like you're going in a very specific direction. If I had any knowledge of anyone's propensity to do something like this, if that's what happened, I would not still be in a relationship. Or, right, I think it's okay to say that. You wouldn't have been. Strickland, it's absolutely insane. Carter, you're really smart about things like I don't want other people's passcodes. I mean, that takes a lot of maturity to realize you don't want to know every detail of someone else's life because it'll just. Strickland, it's like stupid. Carter, nag, it ends up nagging at you. Strickland, it's just lessons learned. Carter, right, I think that everybody should get to the point. Everybody doesn't. Strickland, well, if you want to, Carter, I mean, if you want to constantly be torment yourself, then read someone's diary, right? Strickland, exactly. There's plenty of things to do with your life and be with other people. Carter, right. Plenty of healthier ways to be in a relationship. Strickland, there's a lot of people I think I could have been spending my last 3 years with. So just mind-blowing the way she was. These questions are being asked. Carter, you are, in my opinion, how could you not be in a state of overwhelm through all the huge, significant questions that are happening for you, right? And events that are happening, and there's just almost nowhere to rest your mind. Strickland, I want to be helpful, but if they're asked any questions that are very clearly like trying to lead a narrative that they're working, I don't feel like I don't have any relevant. I guess I should just say I can't, I don't know. Carter, let's tell him no. When he comes back in, to the extent that you want to continue, we will say, I feel like I'm being asked to support a narrative, right? And if you have specific questions for me, I want to ask them. I'm real uncomfortable trying to help you build a specific case that the only thing you can speak to is factual knowledge. Now, if it's not clear now, the impression that you sort of get is law enforcement are trying to investigate this. Law enforcement do have a theory, and they thought that they would get some help and support from Strickland. And instead, I think Strickland has given them some answers, given them some support, but it's almost like he's saying, well, you're asking too much out of me now. That's really taking things too far. I need to sort of back away, right? And I think if it was unclear what Strickland's position was, I think it's become clearer now where he sees himself in terms of Mo and Caitlin, right? Okay. I'm going to try and get to the part where the detective comes back into the room, and then we can stop there. I wonder how much longer it's going to go on for. There it is. Okay, so it's just not that far. So I think he said yes. Okay. Carter, was Caitlin hard to get along with that weekend in Arkansas? You don't have to answer it, but that's what he's Strickland. She's really good. Carter, that's what he's wondering. Strickland, not particularly. Carter, right. I know in my relationships when something is actively bothering me like that, it's hard for me to go through ordinary emotions. So I would expect over a full weekend like that you'd see some signs of unhappiness. It sounds like you didn't. Strickland, yeah. Carter, they weren't exhibited. It also sounds to me from what I'm hearing, you're like somebody who gives other people a lot of space in their relationship, and that's you. You like also to have some personal space and some personal boundaries around every single minute. Around, do you spend all your time together? Around, like, you encourage group rides, you encourage friendships because it's healthy, and it seems like that's what you're looking for. That is what Carter says. Strickland says, yeah. Carter, in personal relationships, it seems like that's what you cultivated. Strickland, yeah. I mean, if someone has a desire to, and run around, they're going to run around. Carter, right. Strickland, there's nothing you can do. It's quite interesting that he's talking about if someone's going to run around, they're going to run around. And the question is, were you running around? Was Mo running around? Was someone running around? Did Caitlin run somewhere? Strickland says, there's nothing you can do. It's I think all you can do is extricate yourself from the situation. Carter, you didn't see anything you need to extricate about, did you? Strickland, no. Carter, so there we are. Strickland, I didn't see anything that was, so I mean, yeah, it's just absolute Carter. So you don't know. The answer is you don't know, and you're uncomfortable speculating. And I think it's not just reasonable. Strickland, yeah. Carter, it's helpful. Strickland, yeah. So yeah, you've got quite an interesting situation where you actually have a situation of someone feeling uncomfortable with speculation because it could get them kind of into trouble, and they're saying, I'd rather not actually talk. Except it's a detective asking questions on a particular point. Anyway, so Carter says, hey, come in. Spittler says, hey, I'm so sorry about that. All right. Carter says, you want to speak for yourself or you want me to? Strickland, no. Carter, it's all right. Strickland, we were just talking, of course, just filling time, and I'm more than happy to help give you any information you want. Spittler, yes. Strickland, of course, that's helpful. Spittler, it's been extremely helpful so far. I mean, you've been great. Strickland, I mean, beyond factual questions, do you have? Spittler, I don't feel comfortable making any speculations about a narrative. I understand your work. Everything's on the table, and that's absolutely 100%. Spittler, of course. Strickland, it's understandable. I just can't. I'm not going to make any speculations about what I think. I mean, if I had the remotest sign of somebody having any instability of mental capacity, I would not be in a close, intimate, committed relationship. I think that's kind of a broad way of saying someone's extremely jealous. So if there's the remote sign of somebody having an instability of mental capacity, I would not be in a close, intimate relationship. Spittler says, Strickland, like in a relationship with them, sharing my whole life. Spittler, yes. Strickland. So that's all I can say. Spittler, of course. Strickland, that there is, I mean, if you're wondering, were there signs? Was there this? Was there that? If there were any fucking signs, I would have extricated myself from Spittler. Yeah. Strickland, a relationship and gotten a lot of space and a restraining order or something. Spittler, In a way, this is the best, what's the word? The best statement that I think Strickland is making on his own behalf. He's sort of volunteering what he doesn't want to talk about. Strickland says, so that's all I can say regarding, like, is my partner unstable? I mean, I've never seen any signs of that. If I had, I would not. Spittler, yeah. There's plenty of other women in the world in the community that I could spend my time with. Spittler, Strickland. So that's all I can say. Spittler, of course. Strickland, Spittler says, and as far as the speculation, I'm not expecting you to know everything, I mean, if you don't know something, then you don't know it. Strickland, sure. Spittler, and that's fine. Trust me, I'm not trying to trick you into anything or saying anything. Or and then Strickland says, well, Spittler says, Caitlin a lot better than me. Strickland says, your associate definitely was trying to get me to implicate somebody. Spittler, Strickland, that in something that's the most serious and severe. I mean, you have the evidence. I don't have any fucking evidence beyond. So Spittler, Strickland, yeah. Spittler, well, and I don't like that that's how it came across to you because, and again, that's kind of like what I was saying. Like, I don't know Caitlin. I don't know you. I don't know Mo. I don't know Cash. Strickland, yeah. So, Spittler, but you've been in a relationship with Caitlin. So you can actually provide that insight. Strickland, yeah, I'm always Spittler, and so if I Strickland, indiscernible is like the basis of my entire relationship with this woman. Spittler, Strickland says she's an incredibly kind, caring, sweet person who has helped take care of my aging mother. She helped her secure like $20,000 in unemployment. Spittler, Strickland, by just being on the phone for 5 days, like she's shown shining examples. So I don't think that we're going to take it further than that. We are at page 156, and I think we'll do a part 2 in this analysis. I think you'll agree that we've gotten to know Colin a lot better through this. Do you guys agree with that? We've gotten to know his position in terms of this investigation. So we'll come back to page 156, and continue with the unpacking of the interview transcript. Do you guys agree that it's been quite illuminating, quite interesting? We've really gotten to know some additional detail, but also we've gotten to know Colin as a person. We've gotten to know Colin as a potential partner, right? The kind of guy he is. We've definitely gotten to know him a little bit better. Someone says, oh my God, I've missed 150 pages. No, it's a very long document, 487 pages. I think we covered about 50 or so. So you haven't missed 150 pages. So we will deal with part 2. So you guys can look out for that. See if there are any more points here. CJ Calabrito says, to be fair, I wonder if you had any inkling. Terry says, I guess he wouldn't want to say something about that. You must remember what he has on the cards is he's a professional athlete. He's got sponsors. And anything that he says, where he says, well, I was aware of that, is going to potentially impinge on his career. I don't know whether you would think this far, but the other side of it is, if, well, one just wonders about this side. If law enforcement failed to prosecute Caitlin, if Caitlin is not convicted of anything, then you would imagine that he can just go back to his life as a professional athlete. And isn't that what he wants? Right? And then I think the other side is, what about justice for Mo? Or do you say, well, she's never coming back, that's over. She can't be saved. So what can be saved? What is the psychology there? Okay. Mal Stiller says this has been fascinating. It has been quite interesting. CJ says, I wonder if he's in shock. He doesn't sound like he's in shock. I think he still has his biggest sponsor, which is Red Bull. I think that is at least intact. So I'm not quite sure if he's racing. I don't really know about that aspect, but I feel like at this point he still feels like he's got something to lose. This was the 17th of May. Okay. Okay, guys, we're at 2 hours. Thanks a lot for joining me. We'll do probably a part 2 to this. I'll let you guys know. It might be a day or two from now. So I hope you found it interesting. Again, thanks a lot, SM Kovalinski, for sourcing this. You should also just bear in mind, this is what Kofa has highlighted, Strickland talking about being manipulated and tricked and being uncomfortable, and that suits Kofa's narrative. You've also kind of got to wonder, what is the stuff that he hasn't highlighted, right? Also, what was said during the first interview? Where's that transcript, right? And also, we would be interested to know what other people who knew Caitlin and who knew Mo said about what they saw. Were there other people that saw Caitlin and Mo together, and what did they see? What did they say? Nisi, you're just in time for me to say goodbye. Stephanie, I hope you have a good night. I want to thank all the mods who are here, Terry, also the members and the subs and new subs, and thanks for the super chats. Very much appreciated, always. Pauline Buckle says this was fun and informative. Yeah, it definitely was something I didn't expect. There's definitely been lots of twists and turns in true crime over the last while. Okay, guys, take care, and I'll see you guys next time.